Laurie, good to see you. I know you've been talking to the Fans Parliament this week. They've not always been the easiest things to do, but I imagine this one was pretty good.
It was a lot easier, yeah. I think Kevin was only up for about 5 minutes, which is probably a record for him. And we were discussing a wide range of things, really, just in terms of stadium development, some infrastructural sort of investments that we might make within the ground. Obviously, we announced in the last 24 hours some quite substantial road closure and sort of access changes to our match day, which again we sort of covered off in as much detail as we could last night to really start that process of communication, so the fans and the supporters, and not just fans and supporters, but users within the city that don't use Molineux on a match day, because it's going to have an impact on them as well, can begin to understand a large amount about the rationale and the context of why we're doing it, and also the people that we're doing it in partnership with, because it's not just about the football club as well.
It's probably important to touch on that whilst you brought it up. I guess there'll be a lot of supporters who are used to coming to Molineux and having their match day routine in a certain way that are going to be affected by those changes.
They will. And I suppose that the first message really is we're going to have patience off everybody while we go through quite a substantial transition, and we're going to go through some temporary measures to start with, and then we'll be putting the council will be implementing more fixed-term measures in the sort of spring of next year. But the result's still the same, in that there's going to be an impact as to how people can freely move in and out of the stadium on a match day. And I know that many of our supporters will have had a routine that will have been in place for years and years, but ultimately the main sort of backdrop for why we're doing this is to improve and increase spectator safety, for a whole number of reasons, not just in terms of traffic flow on the roads, but giving them as much assurance that when everyone's in and under our care that they're as safe as they possibly can be. So I think when you look at the wider picture, and whilst I appreciate there is some people that are going to have to change the way in which they do their match day sort of routine, the greater importance is ensuring that we're going to get everyone in and out as safely as they possibly can be.
Is there an element that I guess some of these measures are coming to the forefront more because there are simply more people coming to the stadium this season? The numbers through the door, the gates, have been remarkable compared to recent times.
That does certainly, it magnifies the concern more. That said, we've been having this discussion with the council now and the safety advisory group for, well, several months really. So it's not something that we've just literally picked up since August and gone, right, our average attendance is over 27,000. We should really look at how we sort of provide a greater degree of protection and safety for these people. This is a discussion that was been had right at the start of this calendar year. So, and not only that, but just further pressures outside the wider sort of Wolverhampton sort of group in terms of the Sports Safety Ground Authority and some of the pressures from further afield. So I think it's been coming for a while. I think in many ways we are probably a little bit behind the times in terms of, if you go to many other grounds, they've already got wide road closure sort of implemented within their sort of their match day process. So I think it's something that, as I say, would have been coming inevitably. But yep, I think the fact that we've got greater crowds coming in there, the fact that events that take place within the world on a regular basis these days have provided a greater degree of focus for us, that we need to make sure that we're ensuring everyone's safety as best we can.
On those attendances, I think the last time you and I spoke, we were over in the South Bank talking about season tickets and early bird prices and the prices of general tickets coming up this season. Has even you been surprised by the level of interest that right from the start, from the very first game, has been there this year?
Well, thankfully there was a really strong interest when we announced a lot of these initiatives, and that didn't really sort of diminish. So I think as we went through the process, I wouldn't say I was surprised. I was extremely pleased. I was happy. I think the initiatives, the response to that reflected the fact that I think they're right. And I think what's complemented those initiatives now is the fact that the squad's better, it's improved, technically it's good. thankfully we're playing some really, really good football. I mean, I talk to fans a lot of the time, and the common thread is this is the best football we've seen in years and years and years. So that's extremely pleasing as well. So I think you've got a combination of a number of areas that have all sort of contributed. And you're right, the attendances that we've had so far this year have been extremely, extremely pleasing. We're averaging 27,000 plus. And I think, as I say, I think if the quality of our football has obviously provided a significant boost in terms of that, but if we didn't have the grounding or the basis of over 17,000 season ticket holders within that group, then we may not be getting the same level of numbers as we've been seeing. So I think there's a huge amount of appreciation that we need to give to our fans, because a year ago we sat and had a similar conversation, and you kind of said, "Oh, what's your message?" And the message was, "Well, just trust us. Give us a year to make some inroads into this." And I think a year down the track, we have made some significant inroads in terms of squad development, in terms of fan engagement, in terms of sort of just trying to give people back something that's going to make their visit to Molineux all that more sort of pleasurable for them. So it's extremely pleasing, and given the size of this fan base and the loyalty that they put towards this team, it's not been a massive surprise, to be honest with you.
Because I guess, I mean, you're not here for a pat on the back, but when you look at the success that's being made on the field, but also off it, I guess, is the one that pleases you more than the other, or are they just both too much the same? No,
they're very much the same, and this is certainly not about individual sort of success. We're a team, and to be quite frank, if the team on the field aren't performing really well, we it's going to make life difficult for us elsewhere around the piece. So I think the pride should be sort of directed towards how the players are performing, whilst at the same time putting into context we're still extremely early in this journey into where we want to be over the next sort of 6 to 7 months. But they're both, as I'm extremely happy both in terms of how the team's performing, but also how the rest of the team's performing in terms of all of our off-field staff that work as equally as hard in their own way, our ticketing teams, our marketing teams. We've got some extremely good people in this business, and it's a combination of everything coming together at this moment in time that's meant that I think as a club, as a team, we're performing extremely well.
Because regarding the on-the-pitch stuff, I know it's not strictly your remit, but you'll have an insight and a view on it. Given the investment that was made in the summer and the level of players that have come in and the coaching staff that have come in, are you tempted to change your expectations as to what you think they can achieve this year?
It's a bit of a tricky one, that one, isn't it, Mikey? I think what I'd say to that is I think we're extremely happy where we are now. We're satisfied with our current position. We're satisfied on the whole with the performances. We've obviously had a couple of games that have been harder, but then that's the nature of the Championship. No, it's the cliche we always churn out, but no one game's the same. But if you were to say to us, right, benchmark where you'd want to be when you get to the autumn international break, then or the October international break, then being second in the league is clearly would be well within your sort of scope for satisfaction. So we're there, but we've not achieved anything whatsoever other than we've just put in consistent performances at the start of the season to ensure that we're at the top end of the table. And I think we need to continue to do that. We need to continue to take it almost a game at a time, ensure that we're sort of banking as many points as we can, staying in that group. And I think the longer the season goes on, I'm not trying to evade the question, but I think the longer as the season goes on, then I think we'll start to realise, or we'll start to put some realistic benchmarks as to where we think we'll have a good chance of finishing. Don't get me wrong, I think there's enough quality in this group to do something really special this year, and I think I've got every expectation that we will. But right here, right now, I wouldn't be putting pressure on anyone by changing my expectations or being quite so public as to where I think we should finish.
Optimism and realism,
basically, yeah.
In that regard. You mentioned the quality that has come in and doubted in the summer. The one question the fans would all have is there still some room to get more in January if needed? Yeah, there is. I mean, we discussed this at the Fans Parliament last night, and I suppose the question was kind of put to Kevin primarily just around they want some reassurance as to some of the players that are in the group that aren't fixed players for us.
in terms of whether we retain their service going forward, and clearly that's something that we're talking about now, and hopefully that's something that we'll get some resolution on pretty quickly. But there's still the scope to improve the squad if we think we need to, and I think certainly before the end of the transfer window, that was a point that I was making in an interview, that the people that we bring in to this group have to, and even more acutely in my opinion, in January, have to be ones that are going to be making that difference. And not only are you thinking about what's going to happen in the 6 months that follow January, but are there going to be players that are going to come in and make a difference for 18 months or 24 months? So I think January is a slightly different, we'll have a slightly different perspective to maybe what we're looking at in the summer. But make no mistakes, if we think that there are gaps to fill, or we think we need to strengthen the group in order for us to push and make that push to get us over the line, then we've got the scope to do that, and we will do that.
So you're just over a year, I guess, into this project. We've talked a lot about the successes that you've had. What's next? Because I imagine the big task now is not to stand still, but to keep going.
Well, we're doing a lot of work at the moment around for us, what does the next 1, 2, 3 years look like? So we're looking that far in advance. Next really has to be, we're building a team that's going to get us promoted out of this league. That's firmly the hope. And when we do that, how do we build that team that then not just make us sustainable within that league, but really make us competitive within that league? So so we're looking at, and we're analysing all of that at the moment. And then what goes with that is ensuring that all of this huge fan support that we've started to garner over the last 3-4 months, or beyond that really, sort of 10 months, really starts to gather even more momentum. So we're guaranteeing, or as best we can, increased crowds, maximum capacities in this stadium. So not only are we complementing really good football, but really, really strong fan support, and really starting to grow our fan base far, far and wide. It hasn't, I think we've been truthful, and again realistic. The process with which we've managed to do that over the last 12-15 months has been slower than we would have wanted, or if we're being realistic, is going to be a project and a process that's going to take some time. But if we manage to continue on the trend that we're doing with regards to our football performances, we get into the Premier League and we stay there, then all of the other projects that we've touched on in the past will really start to take on more effect.
So a year ago, I asked you what your message was, and it was trust us. What's the message now, a year on?
The message now is just continue to support. I feel we're in such a positive place. We've got really high expectations as to where we want to be this year, but it's going to take a huge club support in order to get us there. And I think at the moment, as we stand here now, the team are doing as best as they can do. I think, you know, we've always got ways in which we can take that forward, but just stay together. We're on the precipice, I think, of doing something really special here. And when we do, if we get there, and when we do get there, it will be as a result of absolutely everyone within the fabric of this club, the players, the coaching staff, all of the off-pitch staff, and the fans pulling together as one, and that's exactly what we want.